Last episode, we got our character into Unreal Engine and made some animations for him. There were glitches aplenty and lots of redoing stuff, but the results were pretty good. We discovered inverse kinematics in Blender, I discovered them, while those of you who already knew patiently waited for that revelation to take place, and by the end, we had some animations that responded to inputs and conditions, and a skeleton that was slightly more useful. But all of this Unreal Engineering has been pretty slow moving, and has proved to be quite the headache. I think it's about time we get back into Blender.
So I think I should probably do more of this kind of stuff. I know I just said that and then kind of like looked around in Blender for a second and then just didn't keep doing concept stuff. I don't even know why that happened, but I did do that. So, because the thing is right now, if you imagine a shape kind of like this, and imagine you have another one of these. This is at least how it feels to me. You can progress the art so far until a certain point where I don't know what I should be designing. I don't know what I should be coming up with. I don't know what I should be thinking about. I can keep trying to make new soundtracks and trying to draw new things or model new things, but they need to be influenced by what the gameplay looks like. But then at the same time, I can only get the gameplay so far before it hits how far I've got the art, right? Because if you have no visuals to put your gameplay onto, then what are you even imagining, you know? So what ends up happening, so far at least in this project, is I'm kind of doing this.
This may not necessarily be the right way to make a game, but I'm not sure there is one right way. My plan is just to push forward making this game whichever way feels right, and then you guys get to see the pros and cons. And maybe the way that I approach things will change as I get the idea and game more developed. Well, let's get back to our Blender scene and see what we can do.
So I want to make a river. I want to make a, river that does this. And then it kind of follows this boundary like this. And then I kind of want to have like a log that goes across it.
And so I began. This is the kind of work I'm really comfortable doing, since it's not that far from what I was doing with the Mario Kart track revamps. One thing that I felt really good about while modeling this part was how I made the river, because I almost went with my default reaction to this kind of a puzzle, which was to make the grass square bigger, and then somehow make a river in the square by cutting the shape out, or booleaning it, or something. But I realized it would be way easier and cleaner to just turn that square into one side of the river, and then make a new grass square that follows along the path. This was a pretty great feeling, because I caught my own error in real time, and felt that I immediately had a new perspective on how to solve these kinds of issues. A perspective that will now make my future modeling skills more robust. After I had the outline of the river, I filled the gap between the planes and inset a face, which I then could indent down into the ground and put the dirt texture on. Then I made another plane. This one's going to be the water that runs through the river. I went ahead and just made this a giant square, because while I can make it the same shape as the river, I didn't, I guess. It probably would have been a good idea to keep things cleaner and everything, but it's too late now. The next thing I wanted to do was make the water more watery. I want to be able to see through it, which you would think is easy. It used to be, but now I have to go find a tutorial for how to do this in the current version of Blender. Now, will this do anything when I import it into my game engine? Heck no. But this is all part of developing the idea. It's about making this place a place. And so the next thing I took on was making a skybox, using the trusty duplicate and clean up the tiling with AI trick. This is better, but definitely not perfect.
So the issue with this is just that it's too zoomed in, it's too close. So like this skybox is not terrible, but it's too close. I need a bigger image of more trees and things.
Well, there's not a whole lot I can do about that right now, so let's just hide the skybox and continue working on this level. I went ahead and made a log that crosses the river and put some cubes around it. Cool. Okay, let's try to fix that skybox. I tried a kind of weird technique that actually had some cool results. I basically keyed out the sky on the skybox image in Photoshop, and then made another skybox around that one and gave it a basic gradient sky material. Then I made the outer skybox allow light to pass straight through from the sun, while the tree layer blocks light, creating shadows. This way, the light from the sun is actually coming in through the trees. I don't know if this is something I'll use in-engine, but it's giving me some decent results here in Blender, and that got me thinking more on the lighting. So I set up a couple of spots over the log, and after grabbing a render, I think we're getting somewhere. Alright, what's next?
So I think instead of like brown dirt here, I kind of want a yellow sand.
This should be pretty easy, and honestly, it was probably just an excuse to use A-Sprite again, but unfortunately, it looked pretty terrible once it was done, which actually doesn't really have anything to do with how terrible the texture itself looks. It's really just the color. We had a nice natural brown and green thing going on, and this whitish yellow is just entirely wrong. So I'll probably just stick with the dirt for now. But that's no fair. I want to make a new texture still. So let's make something to go on the ends of this log. I wanted to create a layered ring pattern. So I just placed a bunch of circles one on top of the other until I had reached the center.
Okay, I see that'll work. Looks pretty cool.
Now I can unwrap those ends and go generate a normal map. Holy crap. Next, I want to add some kind of hill or cave or something over here, so I modeled a shape up out of the ground and cut a hole in the front with the knife tool, which is Ctrl-K. Then I used E to extrude the face back to create a tunnel, and I used some of the brick pieces to create a little pile of ruins. I added some more lighting and extended the terrain a little bit off to the right. This is pretty good, but I want to make some smaller details now.
You know what, let's design some foliage or something, some surrounding details. That's kind of what I want to do.
I drew a leaf in A-Sprite and unwrapped it onto a thin plane that I loop cut and turned into a V shape, but honestly, I'm not really sure what I should do with this plant. So I headed into NoClip to look at some Dark Souls 1 foliage that caught my eye not too long ago.
I think it was more in the Undead Parish side of the map, which is... Okay, I'm just going to take the way that I got there, because I don't know specifically where it's at. That goes to the shortcut. You kind of go around here. There's a guy with a spear right here. Yeah, this foliage is pretty cool. Like those things, I like those things. Those are cool.
So I headed back into Blender and decided to just use these leaves I made on the log. I modeled a patch of moss out of a cube with the grass texture, where I had some of the leaves sticking out. And to make the moss blend in better, I added some green moss lines and speckles to a new version of the wood texture. And I think this looks slightly better. So before we get too wrapped up in all the little details, let's take a step back and make sure we know what all should end up in this level.
So what else do I want as a feature in this level? So I still like a lot of these ideas. I still want to do some of these. Like, I think my current idea for a first level is not that far off from this. So to make things clear, this is not necessarily the layout of level 1. This is me messing around with things and trying to make a level so I can basically start to form something that I can base level 1 off of. It might be heavily influenced by the way that this ends up looking and features of this. It might end up almost just straight up being what I end up making, just a more refined version of it, or it could end up being nothing like this and just kind of taking certain features and aspects. This is still getting me to make things like this moss texture, like the leaf texture, so that I can have the building blocks I need to make a level. So what else do we want to do? This would be a good spot for sort of like a labyrinth of these ruins.
So, ruins it is. I had the idea for a labyrinth at first, but sort of changed it into something more open.
So this could kind of be like a little platforming playground or gauntlet almost. A lot of different shapes, maybe like a really tall tower. So okay, so these are some fun pieces we can work with. We can even make some more pieces. So let's make... How do I want to make this? I almost want to make it out of a plane. So it's going to be like a pyramid, but it's going to be a prism? Is that what it's called if it's a pyramid with 4 faces? Or is a pyramid also a prism? I don't know what a prism is. Okay, so let's move the cursor to selected. That'll move the cursor to this plane. So I'm just going to extrude a point off of this, extrude a point off of this, extrude a point off of this, and you have to click to place it. And where these points end up doesn't really matter because they're all going to end up in the same place. So the first thing I'm going to do is selection to cursor. It's going to put it right there, but then I'm going to do like GZ1, maybe like 2. So now I'm going to put the cursor to that point, which is just the center of this object, but 2 units up. Then I can do Shift S selection to cursor, Shift S selection to cursor, selection to cursor. And now we have almost a prism thing. So then I can shift click, select all the edges, and click F to fill the edges with a face. Careful not to select random crap. And there we go. And then I'm gonna wanna kinda double check the face orientation to make sure nothing's inside out. And as you can see, I think the entire thing is inside out. So I'm just gonna press A in edit mode to select everything, and then Alt N and flip. And there we go, it's not inside out. Okay, and then I'm actually gonna lower this down a bit. Oh, okay, no, it's not done. You can go into X-ray mode and select all of these at the top, make sure they're all selected. Or you can even just press A, you don't need to go into X-ray mode. And then press M, which will merge them and do by distance. And if it says removed 3 vertices or however many vertices, then you should be good, and these are now all one vertex. So there was probably a way to just make one of these. If you generated maybe a cone with only 4 vertices. Yeah, see, that's the other way to do it, which takes about 0 seconds, and it's not inside out, and this is one vertex, so yeah, but it was funner to make it out of a plane, so screw you. Now let's throw on the brick material, and I'm gonna have to fix that, I guess. Okay. Yep, and now it's unwrapped pretty well. It's a little bit weird. Uh-oh. Yeah, I'm fine with that. So that's another piece we have now. So let's say you need to get over here. Well, then maybe it's like this. Maybe it's like this. Something like this, where going here, 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 then to get over here, you have to jump, get to this side, slide down, and then jump up off. I think it would be pretty cool to have something like this that really just like snakes around and goes really far, you know, where it's almost like a full kind of level. It's like a full obstacle course. But let's say you get to here. So I'm thinking like, you know, every time you basically hit a checkpoint, you can press a button and then out of the ground, a little thing comes up. In case you fall, you kind of get the checkpoint. And the thing is, I wouldn't be like super overly making sure that there's only one way to do things, because I don't mind if you're able to barely pull off a like jump from the corner, or you know, or like you're able to jump from here to this side and then get up here. I think that's awesome. You can do that. But there's going to be an intended way through, the obvious way through, and it shouldn't be too difficult. I think this little area is starting to come along. But while I was assembling this brick obstacle course, I noticed something about the brick texture that I had somehow missed up to this point. Now this brick texture could use a little bit of work because it doesn't have a seam on those. Hold on. I probably fix that. Yeah, see what I need is, I need like one of these right here. Okay, that should make a better brick texture. That won't be a big deal. So let's see if that worked well. No. Oh, because it doesn't come down on the top. Hold on, it needs to come down on the top. Here. Now the bricks look more like bricks, but the normal map needs to be generated again. I had an issue where the normal map made the lines between the bricks too prominent, so I made a weaker version of the normal map, cut out those lines, and comped them over the stronger brick normal map. And there we go. Perfect. Yeah, look at that. That looks great. Wait, something's wrong. I'm not fixing it. Oh, it's just because this is too... It's because of the way that I stacked these blocks that it makes the brick pattern look strange. And then I could do like a... if I make the loop cut right on the seam, and then I could have this go a little bit higher to be sure you can't make the jump. Yeah. One. These faces can be deleted. These two edges can be connected. And then this can be closed up. And then we have the shape now. We just need the textures not to look like the way that they do right now.
I finally feel like I'm at the point in Blender that I can imagine a shape and then just make it. It's a good feeling to make nice looking geometry happen without any real suffering. Like, is this even Blender still?
Yeah, that looks really good. It's the kind of thing where you can't jump all the way over there, so you jump down to here, then you come around, jump, and now you're up here.
Well, that was a lot of fun, but I really need to address the gameplay, and not just the gameplay of how you're supposed to play this obstacle course, but like the actual game that I'm making right now that I didn't really plan out very well, or at least not on camera. I have done plenty of thinking and scribbling, but it was only really at this point in recording that I came to a conclusion that I was pretty happy with.
So the basics are, I want 3D platforming to be the gameplay that happens inside of the levels, right? This is kind of the main gameplay. This is the genre, right? But then I want another element to help drive the 3D platforming, and that's going to be the cafe element of the game. This is decorating, purchasing upgrades, unlocking new rooms. And so basically, can't concentrate with this Splatoon music. So basically, I want to merge two different things here. Think of the castle from Super Mario 64, but then also the player home in Animal Crossing. I'm thinking of a sort of your home world, your hub area, where you can place decorations that you find or earn and kind of decorate it and make it your own. This is also going to be where we have NPCs, for example. So let's go to the gameplay side to make this make a little bit more sense. So over here, you're exploring, you're collecting, and you might rescue NPCs. You explore, and then you collect coffee beans. You might collect pieces of furniture. Think of Little Big Planet, right? Maybe up here, there's a little chair, and it's themed loosely around the level, right? Maybe it's mossy, or maybe it's a rock chair, or maybe it's wallpaper, right? Maybe it's like mossy wallpaper. So you collect things and currency, you bring them to the cafe where you have NPCs. They might have a maybe like a rotating inventory of decorations and stuff, something to spend your money on. But here's the thing about your money, about the coffee beans. You know, in different spots, there might be a coffee bean here, and then you might kill an enemy, and he drops a bunch of them. And then the thing is, the coffee beans are stored in here, right? But the thing is, you have two options. And I mentioned this before when I talked about my old concept for BrewBot. You can choose to grind some of the coffee beans and get health, right? Basically, that means that the less damage you take, the more money you're able to bring back. But I kind of want there to be a risk of damage within the platforming. I think that would be really fun. You go over here, you jump up onto this one, you go on this one, and then you try to jump over here, and what ends up happening is you jump over, you don't make it, you slam into the wall and lose some health because you slammed into a wall. And then you fall, and because you hit a wall, you might be like in kind of a fall, like injured fall state, or like almost just, you might just even ragdoll down. And then when you hit the ground, you take damage again. And I'll probably experiment with it and see if it's just like, okay, this sucks, this is terrible. But I like the idea of it, and I definitely want to try it because it gives a risk to platforming without there being, for example, lava on the ground. But yeah, I'd like to unlock new rooms, honestly, mostly for the purpose of having more space to decorate. The downside is, I don't even know, like this over here, already the 3D platforming half of the game is going to be hard enough. I mean, definitely this is not an advisable first project. I think for me, I need to have an idea for a game, and I need to feel like it's gotta exist because it doesn't exist anywhere else. That's the only thing that'll motivate me to get back in, to keep working on it. Everything about this is in my scope of understanding, I think. I can model a cafe. I can make NPCs that you interact with. None of that sounds
perplexing or like it requires some completely new foreign thing, you know? Like if I made this game multiplayer, that's something that's just completely different. That's like scary to even think about. Like my brain can't even go there. It basically, everything here sounds learnable to me, very learnable. But I think this is what I need to do with the 3D platforming, is have your hub area where you launch into different levels and have it kind of slowly upgrading or whatever. Not in any major impactful way, but mostly just for fun. This version of the game that I'm presenting is kind of the optimistic version. There are likely to be at least one or two of these things that turn out not to be so feasible, or just not good ideas. But this is way better than being completely aimless. Now I can at least start to imagine how this game will play as I work on things. There's not much more I can do here without planning the level out a little bit better, so let's get the annotation tool out and start scribbling. I'd kind of like a valley right here that goes down somewhere and maybe like down around here. The river could go up around here, like up some like ledges that have like ruins on them, and there's like, you know, there's like ways to get up to each platform or whatever. But yeah, I would like some very large levels. Probably looking at the character, this is probably about the right size for a level. Kind of almost like the size of a Pikmin level. Yeah, honestly, it was not hard to make this little patch. This was pretty easy to make. So a big part of the exploration is I want to have some secrets, and of course, you know, unlock things and earn things for completing them. And I think the secrets are the kinds of things that I will not show the answers to in these videos. I want to have some of them be really well buried and really well hidden and just fun, and just add like a layer of mystery. I think that's a big thing that holds up Super Mario 64's gameplay and makes the exploration so fun. So if you think of it this way, I think having all of those secrets and all of that mystery, imagine it as a vignette around the possibilities of the game, right? What you actually believe might be able to happen within your own exploring. The more mystery and the more secrets and the more hidden things to find that there are, the more it kind of blurs the vignette around what's possible or what you imagine is possible in the game. And this area is where you end up with people coming up with stuff like Luigi being unlockable, or Waluigi in the DS version. It basically feels like anything could happen, you know, which makes it way more fun to explore, because just playing the game, you might have something happen, or you might find something that nobody's ever found before. And I think Splatoon music is making me not able to think again. I kind of want to expand this level. I kind of want to make this level, like, really go all in on this, like make this a pretty big model, pretty intricate, pretty detailed. Do more of this kind of small detail stuff with some foliage and ground details to make this look less flat and lame, but also really just kind of mock up some geographical features. And I might kind of block out how this is going to work, like kind of get like a general blocky idea of it first. So I got to work on extending the level a bit, starting with the valley area. I did the same thing that worked for the river, making a cube on the other side of the path and creating the path in the empty space between the two meshes. Then I extruded the pathway down and created an open area. This was a type of modeling that I hadn't really tried before, but it was working out really well. This is actually working way better than I thought it would. Just extruding vertices out and then filling faces. Once I had connected everything up to the original mesh, I textured the cliff sides and carved out a better pathway down the valley. And I think that's pretty good. Let's get some other features figured out. I think it'd be pretty cool to have more of like a really big open area. To like have this keep going this way some more. And then for it to start doing the like stepped upward kind of things. So I extended the level out in the opposite direction of the cliff, but I realized that it would probably be best to annotate most or all of my features at once before tackling them. That way I know what will surround each feature and don't ruin certain opportunities to do cool stuff by not planning things out. I drew some pathways that will lead out into other areas, and then drew the open area near the original start of this model. I want to do a big tree in the middle with a sort of ramp cliff thing spiraling around the edge of this area.
Oh, and then maybe it could even take you around this corner and follow the river to a new area. New one, I guess. That's like red. This will be the outer boundary here.
Then I drew some rocks and a little stream that can flow around them, which got me thinking about the river, since it's going to have to lead somewhere. In a way, it's kind of going to shape the whole level around it, so I think I should draw that first.
I kind of want this to be a little bit like a high elevation. Like I want it to keep going and then kind of plateau up here and then drop back down, if that makes sense. Maybe like right here, like up. Like high enough that you couldn't run up this hill, but you'd have to get up it some other way. Oh, maybe even from this. Maybe there would be a, maybe like a bridge across from this, so that to get up here, you have to actually go all the way up this and then cross to this area. Be like fairly rigid like this, leave not much room there, because then this could be low. You know what I mean?
I honestly should have used this annotation system during my previous revamps, because this is extremely helpful. Here, the dark blue represents water, the light blue general topographical features, and the red represents the edge of the map, or some kind of a rigid boundary that you won't be able to just jump over. And of course, you can also write notes for how high or low an area is. I also use the green pencil sometimes, just as a way to have overlapping features stand out from each other. But as great as these annotations are, I didn't want to take them too far.
Now, I've still got this area, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to not mess with this area. I could give this so much space if I really wanted to, and I want to leave that because I don't know if it's a good idea to just sit here and design the whole thing in one sitting. Designing most of it in one sitting is a good idea, I think, but like I'm happy with all this, but I might get some inspiration or some ideas now that I've done all this, and I'm going to save some room for those ideas that I might end up with. I might actually get some of these, like, the general shape of this going.
So that's what I did. I made the tree trunk out of a cylinder with the top face scaled down and then extruded upwards. Then I extended the grass out to the rough shape of this area, and I selected the outer edges and extruded them up into walls. Then I went top down and extruded vertices from the walls outward to create a floor. Now we've got our spiraling ramp ledge cliff turn thing. But this tree could look a little more natural, so let's make the bottom of it a bit more uneven. And we might as well throw a texture on it too. The wood texture didn't really look that good on it, so I went with a dirt texture, which is a little closer to what I was imagining. Then I made a root out of a cube, which will come up out of the ground shooting away from the tree. Now I can start on the rocks. I made the first one out of a cube, but that wasn't great, so I tried an icosphere for the next, which was much nicer. There's something about working with low poly geometry that's really fun. Just working with each individual triangle and making the shape work with the limited geometry is really satisfying, because you know you're making things easier for yourself and everyone else trying to play the game once it's finished.
Yeah, there's a grand total of about 4,700 triangles, which is nothing. For reference, Mario Kart 8 maps that I've modded on the Nintendo Switch or even Wii U, those are usually 200,000 or 300,000 triangles. So we have this much of the level done and it's only 5,000. I doubt we'll make it over 100,000. It looks kind of like a small area because it's like the shape of the tree and everything, but you consider the fact that the character's this guy, this big. This is going to be a huge area. This is going to make up like a third of the level.
Now, it might be a little soon to be sizing up the final polygon count based on what I have now, since there will be plenty of details that get added to this level before it's complete. It actually could easily end up with over 100,000 polygons and require some optimizing from there, but that's not really something I can do anything about besides just be cautious about how I model things. So I pushed on creating the rest of my planned out area, using basically only the extrude tool with E, fill tool with F, and then right-clicking and triangulating faces. How should all of these vertices connect to make a face? I don't know. How should they, Blender? Sure, that looks fine, I think. If you ever get the impression that I know what I'm doing, just keep in mind that to an actual Blender professional, everything I'm doing here is straight up burned at the stake heresy. When you see a comment giving me this advanced knowledge about something I could have done better, I don't go, yes, of course. How could I have overlooked such a thing? No, it's like, I don't know what you're trying to tell me, and now I'm angry and scared. But of course, I really do want feedback, even when it goes way over my head, because it usually does register at some point later, and I end up going back and finding those comments really useful. Well anyways, now that I had most of this area modeled, I went into Sprite and made a texture for the rocks, which looked alright. I also wanted to give the sand texture another try, and I found something that I wish I found a lot earlier.
Can I view a, tile? This is nice. Both. Wait. Oh, this is making it tile? Did you just see that? I drew on the left and it painted. Oh. I should just have this on then, probably.
That's going to be very handy in future texturing in Sprite. The next thing I wanted to do was set up some lights. This is another one of those things that won't carry over to my game engine in any way, but it's something I can at least figure out here in Blender and then try and recreate over in the actual engine. Now as nice as that tiling feature is, I actually didn't use that sand texture. It just still disrupts the color scheme too much. So again, I'll stick with the dirt. But I will be making another texture, this time something to hopefully go on the big tree. I used vertical lines and jumbled them. Then I used the magical tiling mode to clean it up.
Okay, so all that crap I did before, no reason. Tile mode fixes everything.
But again, the texture is terrible. Part of it is the color, but it's also just the wrong idea entirely for this tree. I need something that's more noisy and less patterny. So I made some noise out of some natural tree colors, and that luckily did work out pretty nicely. The next thing I wanted to work on was this little stone obstacle course. I wanted to try and finish it up, so I made a very tall pillar, which will be the end goal, and some surrounding ruins to blend this course into the rest of the level better. Then I extended a downward angled ramp off of the end of this thing. The idea is, you slide down and jump off the end to reach the top of this final pillar. And of course, we've got to have some spooky orange torches to really highlight the normal maps on these bricks. I also made a really subtle but awesome looking green overhead glow that really ties this whole thing together. It's just enough light to highlight the tops of the higher up pieces, giving you a better sense of vertical scale. This is the kind of stuff that I don't intuitively know to try, but we'll figure out by trial and error as this project moves along. The next thing I did was make a bridge between the ledge and the plateau area. I just copied the log that crosses the river and set it up in a way that will act as a one-way bridge. And I duplicated Brewbot over here to get an idea of the scale. Then I started planning this plateau area a little bit.
I could even make this like a forest. I could even make trees up here. I'm talking like up on top of this having a forest of Brewbot sized trees, right?
So I cut some shapes into this topology and started making the terrain up here more interesting. After that, I got an idea.
Okay, I'm starting to figure something out. Hold on. You have to jump. So then you'll be down here and you'll see all that stuff and you'll be like, wait, there's more up there. And you'll be like, wait, you have to jump from over here. And then you'll start to get thinking, well, how do I get up there? Trace it all back. You'll realize the log connects up there, and then you'll realize there's a ledge up here, and then you'll follow this ledge back all the way back here, and you realize, oh, I have to run for like 30 minutes to get there with nothing to do the whole time. So that's where adding stuff comes in. I think Castle Gardens, that track was sort of like this, where I'm making my own level a little bit, but it was so heavily based on something that already existed that it was more like I was doing the connecting work. I was doing the like filling in the gray area, but this is just from scratch, from absolute scratch. You can actually see the borders, I think, of what it used to be. This might be about good enough. I've done a lot in Blender, a lot of like really crucial core stuff. Like, I think the idea of this game is becoming clearer and clearer. Now, the thing people are going to say is the level is too big, too open, and there's nothing in it. That's just an issue with the fact that I need to put a lot more time into this level. You know, areas like this look nice, but once you zoom out, everything's completely empty. That's because I haven't filled it with stuff like this. Yeah, I basically just need to work with it kind of alongside the gameplay stuff. So like, animations and getting platforming right and all of that stuff.
Like I mentioned before, these first 3 episodes, including everything that happened in this video, was recorded over a month ago, and I was assuming that everything I had done in these first 3 parts would end up in one big video for my channel anniversary. But with a couple 100 gigabytes of footage to work with, that wasn't going to be possible. But we're all caught up now. Now the work I'll be showing will be more or less current. In the perfect world, this would be a consistent series that I upload every single week on Saturday morning, but I don't think that's very realistic. So I'm gonna shoot for more like once every 2 weeks. Either way, I'm excited to see what this series brings. Next episode, I'll be looking into the Godot engine as a possible alternative to Unreal. There's a lot that I really like about it, but it'll be kinda tough to get going at first. Anyways, that's gonna do it for episode 3. I'll talk to you later. Thanks.